Hey guys, back with another Maplestory video here. This time we got our second Lotus clear. I got the video on my Paladin this time, and we had 3 newcomers, first time clear for them. So shout out to them, Kokage, Leo, and Zanny. This was Zanny's first ever run of Lotus, and he did a great job. He really held his own. So proud of the team, proud of the newcomers. And in this video, we're going to talk about the 3 most common questions that I get when it comes to Lotus and clearing it. So let's get into it. So the first question I get asked all the time is, how do I prepare for Lotus? First timers are always nervous and scared, and they want to just be prepared, right? But it's not like Arc where you could go in, or Hard Magus, you can go in and reset and do it by yourself and get used to the rotation. Lotus is something that if you want to practice, you have to go in as a team, a full team, and you really have to go full buffed. Because a lot of the times, it's not just getting used to the bombs and the laser speed and all of that combined and how fast you can kill the bombs, but it's also getting used to the 2 times laser speed and the 3 times laser speed. And that's something you can only really accomplish with a full team, with full buffs. So I highly recommend, if you're trying to quote unquote practice, there's no better practice than going in with your full team, experience, and just getting reps, because nothing can replicate it, and you just don't know what that laser speed feels like until you actually get there and experience it yourself. Now, what you can do by yourself, solo mission, is just go in and test what skills, what iframes you have, and just see how they work and how just different ways that you as a class specifically can immune the lasers or do a better job of surviving in phase 1, right? You see, I'm using Hero's Will, I'm using my Will of Erda. Even though I have Synchro up for 1/3 of the fight, I still have these available to me, and I want to be able to feel comfortable and understand when to use them at the proper times. So a lot of the times I would go in by myself and just practice and get used to the timing and getting used to knowing when bombs are going to detonate on me, so that I don't get into a situation where I have Hero's Will or Will of Erda and I use it at the wrong time and don't maximize the skill, right? And then before I get into the second question that I get asked all the time, I just want to talk about this phase 1 right here. You notice how it's going very smoothly, right? We have 8 deaths remaining. We have a few dead right now, and we are going to go through our res cycle. So if you don't know, we have 2 phantoms, 1 bishop. We use our bishop's res first. Then we have our first phantom switch from DPS to res. And then we have, after he uses that res, we have our second phantom switch to TL, allowing us to get back our bishop res and that first phantom res, allowing us to get 4 total reses in phase 1. Now you see, things are starting to fall apart. We only have 8 lives. We still have 8 lives left, but a lot of people are dead. And you're going to see that death counter go down very quickly. Now, this is very common, especially if you've done Lotus and you've seen it and you've gotten to this phase. The fast lasers start picking up. We're not doing as much DPS while our cooldowns are down, and the bombs start to overwhelm us. Now, one of the things that we found out is very successful for us is that we have to stay very, very calm, right? I think a lot of times people get frustrated. They start to complain. Maybe it's lag, maybe it's the bombs. They don't know how to handle these lasers, and voice chat comms get hectic, and we start to panic and fall apart. And one of the things that we try to focus on is staying very calm. We've been in this situation before. Look, people are dying, right? But this is our burst window. This is benediction is up. Bombs aren't going to kill us. We just have to DPS and avoid the lasers, and we're going to get to stage 2. And the term that I use is always just to hang on, right? I tell the team, just hang on, hang in there. We're going to get through it. Benediction is up. Our DPS cooldowns are up. Let's finish it off. Let's focus on doing DPS. Let's avoid the lasers and not worry about the bombs while benediction is up. And that always just kind of helps the team reset, not panicking. And even when people are dead right here, we go into phase 2 with 2 lives remaining, and we're still hanging in there, right? We still know that we can get the job done through phase 2 and phase 3. We just have to lock in and focus on what we got to do. So that's kind of what we think about. I wish I had voice chat comms recorded. Maybe I'll try to get that in the future. and just to help you guys get an insight of what we talk about and how we do callouts. Now, the second question I get asked all the time is my comp enough, right? Is this enough to clear bombs, to do enough DPS to eventually clear, right? And I would say most of the time, I don't believe that specific classes are needed besides obviously your bishop, your pally, and at least one phantom. Now we prefer 2 phantoms because of their DPS and just their added support and flexibility. But other than that, I think the DPS section is pretty much up for grabs. Now, is it easier to have multiple Lumis and Evan, DBs, specific DPS classes? Absolutely. But what we found out, especially in this run, is we don't have a Lumi or an Evan. We don't even have a DB that has a max damage cap on his weapon, right? We don't have that big time DPS that can carry us, and we still got through phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 just fine. So I think the moral of the story is if you're worried about your comp, I would worry more about can the players survive, right? Can they do enough DPS to maximize their classes? Because in this run, our shades carried. But overall, in overall damage, I, as the Paladin, was second. Our Shadower was third. And so these aren't known as bomb clearing, map clearing classes. But if you have players that can hold their own, they know how to do DPS, they know when to use their cooldowns to kill bombs or just help the team when they need it the most, that goes much farther than having a Lumi that just does his rotation. He dies every now and then, and when he's dead, he can't do DPS. And once a Lumi or an Evan, or you try to rely on one class or one person to carry phase 1, it just puts a lot more pressure on them. And if they end up dying, which is honestly inevitable, then everything falls apart. So to answer the question, I would focus more on having a good, solid 10-man of people that you trust that can survive and do damage. And that's going to go much farther than trying to pick and choose players that are specific classes that may not reliable or aren't confident in surviving in phase 1, because we have 2 shades here, and that was plenty enough with our composition to get through phase 1 and eventually clear. And then the third and final, probably most important question is, does my team have enough DPS to actually clear? And the answer is probably, right? So our team comp, for example, we don't have a big time DB, Night Lord, Evan that's going to do 40 bill plus DPM and just carry us, right? Our shade is our top player. I was second on my Paladin. We have 5 players on the team that have 6-set commander. We have 1 only that has more than 20 mil cap. We have a few that have level 50 weapon, a few that have mythic secondary. The point is that we're not the biggest, baddest DPS on the server. We're not in the game. But what I can say is we are a bunch of players that know how to play their class, know how to do DPS, know how to survive, right? We went from phase 1 having 2 lives left, and we're going to clear with 0. And that kind of goes to show that we've been here before, we have experience, we know what to do, and we know how to play our classes. And ultimately, that's more important than gear, right? We have a second shade that doesn't even have a neck or weapon. It's ancient inherent. Right? We have a DB that doesn't even have max damage cap on their weapon soul, doing over 30 bill DPM. So ultimately, it's not really the gear, right? It's hard for me to answer when they say, do you have enough DPS? The answer is probably yes, but it comes down to just experience. This team has been playing together. We've played together and doing Lotus for months, right? And we weren't doing this type of DPS when we first started, and there's just something you just can't replicate. You just don't know until you try, right? We didn't even know that this team comp was going to get through phase 1 because we didn't have a Lumi like we had last time, trash DB like we had last time. We didn't even know if we were going to have enough DPS to clear in the end, single target DPS, right? We got we didn't even have that good RNG. Our threat RNG was actually really good, but as you can see, we got purple orb phase right at the end during our big burst cooldowns. We actually had to have our Phantom swap res right at the last second to res all of our DPS. And so it wasn't the smoothest run. It wasn't the best run. We had a few first timers, but we got it done. So if you have any questions, if these are some of the questions you're asking yourself, the answer is you can do it too. If you've been following along on this Lotus journey with me and my team, you know it wasn't good at the start. We kept grinding, we kept practicing, and eventually we got our second clear. So I hope this helps you guys attempt, clear, whatever it takes for Lotus. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.